This is a really cool article here from University of Copenhagen. Now, when I first started this, I saw this, shortly after I started with the mud fossils. It was around 2012 or so I started with the mud fossils. This goes to 2013, February 2013. Now, and because I was finding tendons, I was finding muscles, I was finding organs. I mean, I found everything. I mean, literally everything. Burses, stuff that people I never even hardly knew existed. I learned a lot in the last 8 years or 7 years I've been doing this now. One of these first things I realized was these tendons, they're tough as hell. They just never go bad. Now, and this article says this is why it takes so long to get over a tendon injury. They don't grow back together. You have to sew them together. Here's what happened. In getting over damage to tendons can be a long, painful process by combining the nuclear tests of the 50s with tissue samples and modern technology. Research collaboration between the University of Copenhagen and Aarhus University now reveals why the healing process is so slow. And I'm going to just cut to the chase. I could read it to you, but what they did when they realized the tendons don't heal. Now, why don't they heal? They did a chemical analysis of it, and they found out that people that were alive during the 50s and the early 60s had extreme amounts of radioactive elements in their tendon. All right, so they had more radioactivity in their tendons than anybody that was born, let's say, 1970, 1980, 1990, in that area, because they weren't doing nuclear testing in the atmosphere. So these people were not absorbing it the way the people in the 50s and 60s were. So the people in the 50s and 60s still have the same nuclear particles in their tendons only. The rest of your body, the flesh and your muscles and your skin and your hair, everything gets replaced. All your organs, they continuously get recycled and replaced. So the tissue that was growing in 1955, 1960 has gone. Well, the tendons, the tissues that were being set up in the 50s and 60s of tendons don't go away. They're still there. Therefore, it's obvious. They are very, very tenuous. They do not go away. There's not a lot of growth activity in them, and not healing. There's no blood to speak of in them, hardly at all. And that's why they were such good building materials for the ancients. All right, this is what tendon is. It's this very strappy, very, very fibrous stuff. That's the Achilles tendon, the heel, and this comes up, and this gives you the spring in your step. Now, these are not springy. They are very, very tight, tough, fibrous. You can see there's no blood in here hardly at all. There's almost no blood surfaces. They don't grow. Once they're set up, that's it. When they break, and see that little crease right there? See this little wrinkle zone? This wrinkle zone? That is where the abrupt transition, that's where they usually snap. There's a place it changes. And you can actually see it if you look carefully. In my microscopic shots of my mud fossils, you can see it absolutely crystal clear. Now, I say they built with these, and I say there was giants on the earth, and these were wet directly after the Great Flood because the great gigantic creatures, and there was a lot of them. I cannot explain any of this. All I can say is I'm looking at the material. What I am looking at is from the Great Flood, and the remnants are extremely clear. How they were so big, I cannot tell you that. I don't have that answer. But I can show you that they were that big, and now you got to figure out the answer. And I can also show you this. All right? Somebody was here with high-tech equipment. There's no way you can deny that. If you look at this, you see these crisscross tank treads over here and in the middle. Those are designed so they will not sink in. This wheels are designed so that it can drive. Now, this is that tendon I just showed you a minute ago, and I will show you a better shot of it. They are excavating this gigantic Achilles tendon when it was wet, obviously. And why would it be wet? Because it was just dead. Well, why didn't it just rot away? Because these were in a wet, soaked environment from the Great Flood. Everybody's spoken of it in the ancient texts, in the ancient clay tablets. It said they were here on earth, and they left the earth and watched the flood. So if you got some other way to explain it, good for you. I'm going with what I see and what was written. Now, they are, as I said, excavating slabs off. What did they do with those? Well, let's take a look and see. Well, as far as I can tell, they were up here cutting, working off of this gigantic tendon, cutting these slabs with some high-tech machine, moving those slabs to these walls. And they made excellent walls, and when they put them in, they were wet and they stuck together, and there was no room between the wet blocks. And the reason they were still moist is because they were from the Great Flood and they were in the process of drying out. Now everybody's seen these beautiful walls. Well, this was one that was poorly done because they used bloody, see this? I believe that was the bone ran right there. And this is the bloody stuff that is the organic tissue that was in that bone. You can see it's red blood coming right out of these little lacuna, blood vessels. It's rotting away, rotting away, rotting away, rotting away. Look at that one. That's a mess. That's a freaking mess. I have a hard time believing they allowed them to build these walls with these scraps. I don't know, it must have been somebody must have got in trouble for this. Normally you see them like this. Absolutely flawless. You see that? You see these bumps? Everybody's seen those bumps. I said, why did they put those bumps there? I can tell you why. Those bumps were tendon straps. You want to see some? These are the mats they used. They broke these little stubs right off here. Those are the straps that held these balls, which the balls are all over the world. They come in clusters all over the place, because this is only not just 4. There's probably 50 or 60 here that are stuck into the tissue layer below, and that allows that tendon mat to pull back and forth and still return based on this strap mechanism that's held it on going through this Chinese finger trap. See? Now, that they break them right off there, and they cut these slabs right across here. You see the little stubs sticking out, and if you look, you'll see organic tissue in the center, which was, they always have a coating around the outside. Every bit of tissues in your body has like layers, and the outside layer is a certain type of tubing that isolates everything on that side from everything on this side. Basically, think about it that way. So, what are you going to see? You're going to see a tubing, and you're going to see some bloody gooey stuff in the center of the tubing, if I am right, which obviously I am. Alright, now, not only am I right, I'm going to discuss something else. You see these bumps? These are the same, remember you had all these different straps running across? Well, you can see it, you can't miss it. That is with the tubing, and there's the bloody stuff in the middle. Now, why are these all in these different looking faces? Plus, they don't do anything. They're just laying out here in the middle. This is a test wall in my world. They are seeing, if I break these completely off in like this, how will that weather? If I leave them like this, how will that weather? If I stick them straight out and leave more, because there's more, everything has fascia, like surface layers. They left the surface layer out. That is actually tissue is in these little blocks. I'm telling you, it's amazing the way tissue is constructed. Absolutely phenomenal. And then they left some sticking way out here with, a little tissue, and then the lumps sticking out. This one they did a little different, this one they did a little different, and then I think that was a test wall. My father was in metallurgy, and they used to put all kinds of different types of alloys. He was in special alloys division of Allegheny Ludlam, and they were doing metallurgy and figuring out what these super metals are. He used to talk about all kind of stuff like that. They could make a muffler that lasts 60 years. Well, back then they were lasting about 6 months. There was a time you got to get a muffler every so often, and I forget what he used to call it. But he was deep into it. He was very, very good at what he did. And they used to test too. They'd have a whole series of things, and they put them out. He'd put them out and attach them to the cars and everything. You know, it was kind of funny, but it was good research. It was easy. There's no extra charge for it. You just bolt it on the car and you run it for 6 months to see what happens to the stuff. Then they do all the metallurgy on it and see what it did. That's what these guys did. They put them out and see how it weathers. So that's what I'm seeing. Now I just want to make the final statements here about Devil's Tower. And you see these hex fibrils here? See all those hexes? That is the straps that run up, and you saw the Achilles tendon. That's what's in them. There's all these hexes. That's what's in Devil's Tower, and that's what's in Giant's Causeway. They were giant creatures. All right, we talked about how the tendons do not repair easily. When they break, you get this wrinkle zone right here because they are always under tension. They're always under pull like this. That's just the nature of their life. Always under stress. Well, you snap it goes boing. Well, the boing happens right here. It's called the wrinkle zone. And let's see where we can find that in the earth. Well, it looks like it's wrinkle zone to me. This is Devil's Tower. The red areas, that's where there was blood up in there. Whenever you see that red, it's sort of leaking out. And they leak out because the heel is deep in the ground. And they are arteries are where blood flowed. They purge and become open as just like plumbing. And in the wet season, the water will come right up straight through and flow right over the top. And these things are absolutely incredibly enormous. Again, I cannot explain it. If you look at the anatomy of how tendons tie in together, this is exactly how they work themselves in. Now, this is the heel area, and it comes up the side of Devil's Tower. If you look at anatomy, there's just no question what it is. You can even see the way the fibrils go to wrap around the calcaneal. There's a little bone that sticks out the back. I'll show it to you. And that's your wrinkle zone, that's your fibrils. That's where it wraps around the ankle. Let's take another look at it.